So Fight for the Fallen is in the books, and now we can just calm down and have a little bit of a relax from professional wrestling. But no, we can't, because this Saturday is Impact Slammiversary, and then Sunday it's the horror show known as Extreme Rules. I mean, even in a global pandemic, wrestling just keeps throwing shows at you, and you've got to try and avoid them, or just stand there and embrace it and let it wash over your body. But as for AEW, they will be going back into weekly Dynamites, which begs the question, was last night's show any good, or should it suck? Not gonna say that. Where did that even come from? What is wrong with me? Basically, does it give an up or does it get a down? I'm Simon Miller, Mr. Ups and Downs. Let's up those downs. I said it too much. Fight for the Fallen did indeed start with the TNT Open Challenge, which meant it was Cody going against Sonny Kiss. And I just want to take this moment to say, if you were one of the people that decided to hurl some homophobic comments towards Sonny Kiss, I've got one thing I want you to do. Go away. Go find a hole, get in the hole, and live there for the rest of your entire existence. Gay, straight, whatever, we're all human beings, jackass, and it certainly doesn't relate to whether or not you're a good or a bad wrestler. In fact, the best thing about wrestling is that it can be inclusive, it can be varied, and it can be diverse. We should have all kinds of characters from all walks of life, and that's what makes the thing so damn good in the first place. Right, just had to get that off my chest. We have, as for the match, up. As ever with Cody, this was all about the story, because he was taking Sonny Kiss too lightly at first, at one point even doing a bunch of press-ups like, this is just another day at the office. But Arn Anderson didn't like that at all, and he pulled Cody to one side like he was his dad and like, if you don't sort yourself out, I will turn this car around and then nobody's going to Disneyland. What he actually said was for Cody to get his head out of his ass, and that remains the greatest phrase in the history of the world. How would you even do it? On top of this though, we also kept cutting to Tully Blanchard in the crowd, and he may as well have had a big sign that says, we're teasing some kind of new Four Horsemen. Now I'm starting to think that maybe we're overdoing this, because actually the story's going to go in a different direction, but either way, isn't it just a lot of fun? Yes, it is. And all of this was just cool extra material, as Sonny and Cody did, like I say, have a damn good match. Sonny Kiss hit his Hurricanrana off the second rope that was so smooth it looked like animation from a video game, and then that 450 splash, it's nicer than a steak. I like steak, but this doesn't make any sense. All of this just seemed to wind up Cody and Arn Anderson though, and at one point they were yelling at Aubrey Edwards, the referee, so you know, we're teasing more stuff here. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? And then that doubled up because he went over to the turnbuckle and he removed the turnbuckle pad. What the hell is he doing? Now it almost cost him, because Sonny Kiss knew what was going on and hit him with the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, but unfortunately Cody was ready for that, and he kicked out. This seemed to wake him up too, because after a quick punch exchange, he did smash Sonny with the crossroads and he got the 1, 2, 3. And do you know what he did afterwards? He went and hugged Sonny Kiss, and how good is that for story depth? He was going to smash this person's head into some steel a second ago, and now he's all like, oh man, don't worry about it. I love all of this. It just makes me so interested and invested. So it's basically just a really, really slow burn. And do we actually know where it's going? We think we do, but deep down, we do not. We're also clearly taking all of this Four Horsemen stuff up to the next level, because then it was FTR versus the Lucha Brothers, and once again the commentators kept saying, look, Tully in the crowd. Tully is scouting, Four Horsemen, Four Horsemen. I mean, they didn't say that, but that was clearly the idea. Either way, up. It was just another damn good match, and sure, it wasn't as good as that 8-man melee from 7 days ago, but you don't have to keep comparing. In fact, I'm getting sick of that. Something good happens, and on Twitter goes, oh, well, it wasn't as good as this that happened 222 years ago. Why can't we enjoy them both? Like before, the idea is always going to be that Wheeler and Harwood are going to work their ground game and go old school, where, of course, the Lucha Brothers are going to go Lucha, because Lucha's got to go Lucha. They're just flying around like the wind, and I really like the wind. It cools me down. There was this excellent spot where both Phoenix and Wheeler went for big splashes and both screwed up because the other person got their knees up when they did come crashing down. And my big question here was, what are we exactly gonna do? Because FTR can't lose, take that off. FTR can't lose, they've only just arrived, but then the Lucha Brothers have only just kind of returned. There was always gonna be some kind of shenanigans. As it turned out there was, because we went back to the past, as AEW reminded us that wearing a mask can actually be an in-ring hazard. Because Harwood ripped Phoenix's right off his head, and that ruined the man to such a degree he got cradled, which I guess is kinda the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, but not really because there was added oomph here, and he was able to get the 1, 2, 3, and what an asshat he is. Who would do this to the man down in Mexico? You get DQ'd for that. Thanks, Excalibur. I'm not sure I ever knew that, but now I do. But in All Elite Wrestling, it didn't count. We did also have all 4 guys in the ring at one point because I guess, as we always talk about, they heard the klaxon, that noise, and they go, oh, we all have to get in the ring. But I just like the fact that AEW focuses so much on their tag team division because I'm a simple man and I like tag team wrestling. But yes, I will say this, if it does keep happening, I will start a counter because I'm a nerd and that's just what we do. And there was more here too because again, they shouldn't have called this Fight for the Fallen. They should have called it Would You Like a Bunch of Story, because that's what we're going to give it to you. I mean, that's not as catchy, but at least it tells you what's in store because Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks came out after this and none of it went very well. I mean, Matt and Nick Jackson did do a very nice thing because they super kicked the Butcher and the Blade, who've been hanging out with the Lucha Brothers, and got back the FTR's truck keys so they could drive away and maybe go and see some friends. And Kenny Omega even decided, look, I'm really sorry for what I did with the beer. I bought you a crate of them, let's share one. And you know what FTR did? They poured it over Kenny Omega's head. Kenny was absolutely livid and he went after these 2 schmoes, but of course the Young Bucks held him back. And if you've been watching BTE, and if you know what's going to happen later on in this episode of Dynamite, surely this has to be the start of Kenny Omega going back to that cleaner character. And if we do, and if he starts making his way up that AEW ladder, I'm going to lose my mind, because it will be absolutely great. The Inner Circle were then out for a promo, and I want to make this very clear. They are a great group. I think at this point, if you want to try and make the argument that Chris Jericho isn't one of the best of all time, well, you're just a loon, because that's not true at all. But unfortunately, just getting it down. Because I need to take umbrage with just one thing, and I get what Jericho was doing here. He's meant to be an asshole, and therefore he says asshole things, but he started talking about the ratings, and he started talking about the demo, and I'm just so tired of it. I'm just so sick of it. Anytime you log onto Twitter and social media, it's just people throwing these numbers around, and I don't need to stoke those fires. My word, have the fires been stoked. And yes, they are fun to discuss between fans, until that one group turns up and just starts throwing obscenities at everybody. But back in the day, I would never have expected Stone Cold Steve Austin to have turned up and said something like, well, last week when I was stomping a mud hole in somebody's ass, it also turns out I scored a 1.22 in the 18-49 demo. So if you're down for impressing marketing executives, give me a hell yeah. And the crowd's like, hell yeah, maybe, I don't know. And sure, he was mostly a good guy, so maybe the 99 version of The Rock would have been better. But even then, do I want him coming out and going, do you smell what The Rock is cooking in the demo? No, I don't, Dwayne. No, I don't. Okay, that's done. Thankfully, everything else here was flipping Fabu up. Because Jericho's big point here was that despite all the love that Orange Cassidy has been getting from the fans and from TV executives and all of these guys, he doesn't care. He beat them. He's done. There's no rematch. There's no nothing. Everybody can just kiss his ass. But Orange Cassidy disagrees. He swanned out here, as wrestlers always do when their names are mentioned, and of course he didn't say anything, which allowed Jericho to go on and on being the massive dickhead that he is. But the other reason Orange didn't care is because he had a plan, he made some kind of a signal, and from the skies, what fell down onto the Inner Circle? Of course it was a bunch of orange juice, and they were all livid, and as for Ortiz, he kept taking bumps like he was on an ice rink. And all of this is the oldest trick in the book, but the reason it's the oldest trick in the book is because it works. Chris Jericho was acting like the biggest arrogant twonk on the planet, but he got his comeuppance here, and now the good guy's like, ha 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 ha, I outthought you. It finished even better than this too, because Jericho demanded a towel, and someone did throw in one, but it was branded with Orange Cassidy's face. He couldn't handle it. He went absolutely nuts, and I suppose we're going to continue this feud, and as I've already said and I'll say again, this intrigues me. What the hell do we do next? Well, it's going to be a tag team match, but still. Quick backstage promo with the Jurassic Express. Marco Stunt said he thinks Chris Jericho is an idiot for getting covered in this kind of fruit, so that's going to go badly. You shouldn't have said that, Marco. And Luchasaurus said he's been waiting 65 million years to take on the Elite, so he's very happy that the day has now come. What a great character this is, he's just gold. Jericho joined the commentary afterwards, and he went straight after Marco because he'd heard what he said, so I smell a squash match in the future, and said that Orange Cassidy had just wrecked his $7,000 jacket. so good on commentary. He says stupid things, but he comes across as all annoyed and all pissed off. I like it. This led into the Dinosaur and his friends taking on the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, and let's keep it nice and simple. This was the best match on the show. Some people on the internet melted down because Marco Stunt was allowed to get some offense in, but I will tell those people this: go and get a flipping real problem up. Nick Jackson and Jungle Boy kicked things off, and I tell you, we need to see that match yesterday because they definitely have some chemistry here. And then yes, it was Marco Stunt facing off against Kenny Omega, and Marco was able to beat him up for a while. But this was all because Omega wasn't taking him seriously. He didn't even take his t-shirt off to begin with because he was like, ha, ha, look at you. You think you can touch me? I don't give two hoots. And actually, that quite is like what we see in sports. You always see the big teams sometimes turn up against the little teams, and for half of the match or whatever, they don't play well, and then they come up for the second half like, damn it, now we've got to turn things on, and when they do, they go back to the top. And that's what Kenny Omega did here. As soon as he'd realised, I've got to take this seriously, he started to whip Marco Stunt's ass. There ain't nothing wrong with this. Luchasaurus and Matt Jackson then completed these face-offs, and of course the klaxon sounded, and everybody started to brawl, to which Kenny Omega responded by throwing himself onto the top rope, pretty much onto everybody. Never forget, this ain't normal. But nothing will be as bonkers as the Canadian Destroyer we did a few minutes later. I can only guess that AEW's now decided on every week we should try and do a more insane version of that move. I can't even explain this. It's even harder than it was 7 days ago. But basically we had a Tower of Doom spot and Marco Stunt leapt off Luchasaurus' shoulders and he hit Nick Jackson with a Canadian Destroyer. They must have fallen around 300 feet. I'm exaggerating. Make sure you go and watch this. Actually, now I've said that, I think it was Matt Jackson, but again, just trying to take it in and let my brain process it was too much. I could then hear the internet melt down again because Marco Stunt actually hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment on Kenny Omega. And even I bit on that one. I thought, oh my gosh, he's gonna win. He didn't. What it did do though was wake up Kenny Omega because he hit Marco with an absolutely brutal V-trigger. He one-winged angel him and he got the 1, 2, 3. So again, everybody calm down. As ever though, there was more because not only throughout all this did we see Hangman Page having beers with FTR, so what does that say to his tag team partner? But Kenny lost it after this. He lost his damn mind and he started punching Marco Stunt right in the face and he had to be dragged away. Luchasaurus played father here. He's like looking around like everyone's gonna stop this, right? This ain't cool at all. So this was yet another cleaner tease and I need this to happen and I need this to happen right now. And while Kenny was all like, yeah, I'm sorry, when he went and sat in the corner, he had a big grin on his face. He thought this was the best thing since that lovely ice cream he had on holiday. So I am very excited about this, especially because if you now look at the Elite, only one person has never showed any heel tendencies, and that is Hangman Adam Page, the person who at one point everybody thought was going to turn heel. If that has been the plan all along, then it gets a round of applause because that is flipping great. Backstage promo after this where Alex Marvez was talking to Shida, and this was fine, it was decent. There was nothing much to it, but they were all like, oh, we don't have many contenders at the moment because of the global pandemic and so on and so forth. Shida was like, look, I don't care. I know Nyla Rose wants a shot and she can have one, but there's plenty of other women too, and I will beat every single one. Okay. And it was the same with Jon Moxley too. He was stood in front of some kind of fence just pacing back and forth going, Brian Cage, I've had a terrible time recently, but I'm about to have the best time of my life because I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to re-tear the bicep that delayed your debut in AEW. And remember that, it's gonna tie in. It was then the Nightmare Sisters taking on Kenzie Page and MJ Jenkins. And if you've just gone, wait a minute, Simon, who are the Nightmare Sisters? I understand, but it's a faction or a formation or a story that's been happening on AEW Dark. And now look, the commentators and the announce team did a great job in catching you up with this. But as I've said before, I just like a little video. If something is gonna make the jump to Dynamite, just give me a 30 seconds video so I can witness this with my own eyes. It's good for my context. I think it just helps if somebody isn't able to watch both programs, but either way, I do like this narrative and I'm giving it an up. Because from day one, Brandy hasn't trusted the bunny, or Ali as she's now known, as she started to have a relationship with QT Marshall. However, because they all love QT Marshall, they want to give her a chance, and that includes Dustin Rhodes, who was kind of their manager here. So these two join forces and they have won a few tags on AEW Dark, but the thing is, they're not entirely into one another, because you always see these blind tags, which Brandy did here too, and then he looked at her like, if you do that again, I will kick your ass. They still won, basically a squash match. They all celebrated afterwards, and if we keep things as expected here, this will be really good. If it is that the Bunny has infiltrated the Nightmare Collective so we can start some kind of program between them and the Butcher and the Blade, all you need is one final story element, yeah, this will be really good. It's just an easy narrative to get behind, it's an easy narrative to understand. Some things never get old. Not humans, we all get old. And then we die. That's a horrible thing to remember, but let's not talk about it now. Following this, Vickie Guerrero was unveiled as Nyla Rose's manager, and who called that? That's right, it was the bald asshole. Don't worry, I hate me too. Nobody likes a gloater. I hit myself in my head. That was the segment though, and within seconds, Vickie reminded you why she is such a good heel manager, because she started to cut one of those promos where you're like, man, somebody has to come up and shut her up, and I actually think these two could be quite decent together. And I know it's another former WWE or WCW guy in the promotion, but look, maybe it's the best thing to ever happen on planet Earth. You have to wait and see. Also, it will 100% get Nyla Rose more hate, and that is the idea. It was in our main event, and I tell you, AEW had done such a good job in making me believe that maybe, just maybe, Brian Cage could win the World Championship. Well, that's what I thought. From start to finish, I wasn't entirely sure. I mean, I was wrong, and Jon Moxley did retain, but up. Moxley was good to his word, because in the early going, he did indeed go after Brian Cage's bicep, as JR especially reminded us, that bicep is surgically repaired. This is not good for the challenger. As it turned out, it also wasn't very good for the champion, because after they had brawled on the outside, I guess in some kind of act of revenge, Brian Cage German suplexed Jon Moxley into the steel barricade. That would break most people's necks, but not Jon Moxley, he's a crazy person. We also got to see the variety of Cage's offense, because he's not just a big dude. I mean, he is, and that's why he kept smashing these lariats that looked like it was going to take Jon Moxley's head off, but then he was trying to hit damn moonsaults. I say trying because he missed, but it is just such a bizarre sight to see a man that size flipping around. He also kicked out of the paradigm shift to really try and protect his persona, and I know, I've already had this all morning. It wasn't very good paradigm shift. Just looked like a double-arm DDT. That was part of the narrative too. They told us this. Taz has said, well, Jon Moxley can try and go for that maneuver, but Brian Cage is too big. So this is how it all ties in. It's like maths. 2 + 2 = 4. The ending was pretty cool too, because it justified everything you had been told. After Brian Cage had gone from the drill claw, which by the way, it should be called the pileplex, all things considered, Moxley was able to lock on the armbar, and you were like, oh no, not the armbar, he's had a torn bicep. And JR even had a great line where he shouted out, wait a minute, pal, Brian Cage can't be forced to have another 5 months out. This is his career, damn it. Cage fought this as best as he could, but as soon as it was locked in properly, Taz threw in his, of course, orange towel, and that was that. And I just thought this was the best way to do it, because Jon Moxley is still the champion, which is needed to be. Brian Cage has been protected again, and Taz now actually cares for the guy he's managing. Even bad guys have feelings. Also, even if you tried to dwell on this, AEW wasn't having any of it, because there was so much after-match action, it was like somebody throwing darts at your face. Plonk. Because Cage lost it and smashed Jon right in the head with the world title belt, and then the lights went off, and if you can believe it, when they came back on, The Undertaker was in the Impact Zone. I mean, of course he wasn't. Even if you bought that for 1 second, you a fool. Who it was instead was the big return of Darby Allin, who jumped off the top rope and hit his skateboard right into Brian Cage's throat. And I don't care who you are. If somebody takes out your throat and you can't breathe, you are gonna die. Cage and Taz then got out of dodge, which allowed Jon Moxley and Darby Allin to stare off. So I was like, my gosh, we're telling plenty of stories here. And then as Brian Cage tried to get back in the ring, he was held back. And that is how the show went off air. So yeah, we had Darby Allin's music playing. He was going toe to toe with the person who's meant to be top of the tree in All Elite Wrestling, and he didn't flinch for a second. If you are trying to make a star, this is a pretty good way to do it. And while I say that's how it went off air, that's not true. What actually happened is Chris Jericho shouted out, "Look at me, Jim Ross," because he was still upset that he was covered in orange juice, to which JR responded, "You stink!" And that's when it faded to black, and I laughed my ass off. So all in all, I thought this was a really good episode of Dynamite, or Fight for the Fallen, whatever the hell you want to call it, and absolutely held its own, even though we had the 2 parts of Fyter Fest. I'll be intrigued to see what happens next, but it sounds like the plan is to pull the trigger on Kenny Omega, and I am ready for that, and I'm also ready to give it it up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's show. Like the video, share the video, hit that subscribe button, then head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, and there's other ups and downs articles that I don't write, so if you think I'm an idiot, you can go and see if you agree with them instead. Head over to Twitter and follow WhatCulture at WhatCulture WWE and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're interested, we still have so much ups and downs this week. Sunday morning, yes right, I'm going to do ups and downs for Slammiversary. It's going to have about 32 new characters in the promotion, and then on Monday, we will up those downs for Extreme Rules. And of course on Saturday, we'll up those downs for SmackDown. It never ends.